Hello, Rob from Fountain Pen Journey with a review of the Sailor Lecoule in Garnet. Now, those of you who've followed my fountain pen journey for the several years it's been going will know that I always concentrate on the lower cost fountain pens, and in most cases they tend to be from China. However, in 2020 I started to get into Japanese fountain pens, and obviously brands like Sailor, Platinum, Pilot, things like that generally tend to make, if you like, higher end pens. However, Sailor, one of their cheapest pens is this Sailor Lecoule model. Comes in a range of different colours and finishes. This is the Garnet colour. Now this is part of a series of gemstone colours, and I don't really understand why the fountain pen industry seems to focus so heavily on gemstones. Pelikan does it, Sailor does it, even the inks. I mean, you see the Lamy inks, they tend to be often special edition colours in various gemstones and semi-precious stones. So this is the Garnet version of the Sailor Lecoule, and first off, it's quite a small pen. It is a plastic pen, but we shall see how it writes, and I've been very impressed with this pen. The Sailor Lecoule really is, in my view, if I mean, Sailor are known for their fine nibs. These pens are only available with fine nibs. There's no other nib options choices available with these pens, and I have to say that after several years of using fountain pens from China, which have fine nibs, especially the likes of Moonman always seem to come with fine nibs, and those nibs are okay. They write, they're consistent, never too many issues with them. But this is a different world altogether, and this is why my fountain pen journey is indeed a journey, because I am discovering all sorts of different things, and I have been hugely impressed with the nibs on these Sailor Lecoule fountain pens. Backstory: I hadn't bought a Sailor Lecoule for a long time because a fellow fountain pen reviewer, well respected fountain pen reviewer, reviewed the Sailor Lecoule a number of years ago, and I watched that video and he said that the writing experience was absolutely terrible, and I thought, well, what's the point in spending this money on a cheap Japanese fountain pen? But I do like the colours that these pens come in, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to risk it. So I bought a couple of them, and I can safely say that these are brilliant writers, and you will see when I do the writing sample later on. All I can really say is, if you've not been happy with Moonman fine nibs being dry and just generally not very interesting, then quite honestly, because the Chinese fountain pens have been going up and up and up in price, to the point where the Sailor Lecoule actually is in the same price bracket, I would say you need to try one of these if you haven't tried one before. So let's have a look at the pen to start with. I mean, it is this nice red, metallic red colour, this Garnet version of this pen. It is a plastic pen, it's quite light, it's fairly short, and we have this finial on top. Nothing extravagant. We've got a sort of fairly classic design. I shall pop it next to this gold Lamy All-Star for a size comparison. So it is a shorter pen. I mean, it is a good couple of centimetres shorter than the Lamy. It's got this steel coloured metal clip which is pretty tight, so it's a decent enough clip. We have the Lecoule brand model there, and Sailor Japan at the back of the cap. Nice to see a cap band down here at the base of the cap, and the barrel does taper down, and we have a metal ring, and nothing spectacular going on there with the finial. So it is a fairly unassuming pen. I wouldn't say it's a pocket pen. It is shorter, as you can see, but it's not really pocket pen territory. It's heading that way, but it's not quite. So let's just uncap this pen. As you can see, the section is the same colour and material as the rest of the pen. Black plastic feed, fine steel Sailor nib, which isn't, there we go, and the barrel unscrews, and it will take Sailor cartridges, so proprietary Sailor cartridges, which aren't absolutely brilliant, but they're not bad. The barrel is sealed, and it's all sort of one piece, perhaps apart from that metal O-ring, metal ring down here. So I would not risk eyedroppering this pen. It's not to say you can't, it's just to say that it's not something that I'd really want to do. Not much going on inside the cap, but I never experience any hard starts with these fountain pens at all. We'll just uncap the Lamy so you can see what they're like lengthwise. I mean, obviously it's a thinner pen as well. Ooh, stay. So yeah, I mean, it's almost an inch shorter, 2 and a bit centimetres shorter than the Lamy. The pen, I actually do, I always thought these pens do post, and they post really well. Quite, I wouldn't say very securely, it just sort of fits on at a certain point, but it is a secure fit. These things don't fall off, and it becomes a really, really nice length to write with if you've got larger hands. So, you know, nothing wrong from that point of view. But unposted, I still write with this pen unposted, and it's a strange thing. I was writing with this pen last night, doing a bit of journaling, and I thought, no, I always post these pens, and I'd been writing for maybe 20 minutes and realised I was still holding the cap, and I thought, oh, actually no, I don't really need to post it. But posted, and it's a very comfortable pen when posted, decent weight, nothing back weighted, really well designed. So it's, in my view, quite a good pen to post. But obviously I wrote for 30 minutes or so unposted without any issues whatsoever. This garnet colour, I'll just talk about that briefly. There is a slight marbling that you can see in there. It's not really what you'd call chatoyant or anything, it is more marbling, and it is turning out to look a lot nicer under these lights than in standard lighting, really. Some of the Sailor Lecoule, these gemstone edition, if you like, fountain pens, they do have sparkly inclusions in. This one doesn't, though, the Garnet, or certainly this Garnet that I got does not. So that is something, and it's not your usual burgundy red. It is quite a nice purpley metallic red, nice garnet colour. So let's have a look at how this pen writes. Got my Rhodia pad. As you can see, straight to unposted. As I said, fine steel nib, and these pens are not available with anything other than a fine. Let's make sure this is in view. That was me trying to write over the camera. it writes brilliantly. I mean, really, really, really well. And for a fine, especially what I can safely say is a Japanese fine, this isn't a European or Western fine, Japanese fine, this pen writes brilliantly, and it's wet. I mean, this Japanese, I mean, look at it, Japanese fine nib, and it lays down ink way, way, way better than any Chinese fine nib. Spectacularly good. And I was put off a little bit by the fact that it is a Japanese fine, so it's finer than normal, but it's so wet, like really, really wet. I mean, you can see when you write with this pen, it does certainly lay down the ink well, and it's nice and wet. So overall, I haven't quite finished yet because there is a bit more to say. Overall, I think that the wetness of this nib is really good, and I have two more Sailor Lecoules, and they are all identical. They all write brilliantly well. They're wet. And of course, the other thing is, I'm never much of a fine nib fan. I always like medium nibs or broad nibs. I like really wet, broad nibs. But this pen is an absolute joy to write with. It really is. I mean, it's such a great writing experience. I mean, it's stiff. You can squeeze a little bit more ink out, but seriously, you wouldn't. It's not worth it. It's not a flex nib by any standard. But it is such, it's such an easy writer. I mean, it is a Japanese fine, so you will expect some feedback. There is Sailor style feedback, which is hard to explain, but you know that you're writing with a fine nib. I mean, it's a fine nib, and it's a Japanese Sailor fine nib, so there is the additional feedback, but it is pure feedback. It is not scratchiness at all. This is, it's strange to say, but it's actually one of the smoothest nibs that I've got. And I think part of the reason for that being is that it is very, very well tuned. That's a bit more pressure there. So no pressure, more pressure. And it requires very little effort to write with. It is just such a smooth nib. It is like incredibly good to write with. So my original thoughts about this pen, the Sailor Lecoule, after watching that original review a few years ago, completely unfounded. This is a great fountain pen, and it is so, so good. And I think another reason that the nib is actually so smooth is because it is so wet. The Chinese fountain pens, the nibs on the fine nibs on those, often tend to be perhaps a little bit drier, and therefore you get less lubrication, whereas this is a really nice wet nib. So Japanese fine, and it is smooth because of that lubrication between the ink and the paper and the nib. As for reverse writing, as you can see, not a lot of difference, to be honest. And I'd actually go as far to say that it's almost a little bit smoother when you writing reversed, but you miss the feedback. So this reversed writing doesn't seem to make the I'll just do a couple of lines. So there's really nothing in that. However, the nib in reverse is actually way, way, way smoother. I mean, it's a fine nib, Japanese fine, but it is extra smooth. But I actually do like the feedback, which feels a bit like you're writing with a very, very soft propelling pencil lead. That's about the closest I can get to it. you know that the nib's in contact with the paper, but it is not scratchy at all. So there you have it, the Sailor Lecoule in Garnet. And I really like these pens. It's a shame that they of course take Sailor cartridges, because I'm not really keen on those. The Sailor converters, which do fit in these pens, they're okay, but the cartridges, they've got that huge open orifice, and it's just, I'm not as keen on the Sailor filling system as with other fountain pen filling systems, the cartridges. But the pen is brilliant. I really love this, and the Garnet version is a really nice colour. It's thankfully not that sort of burgundy colour you get with many other fountain pens, which are this dark red. There is a certain sort of vibrancy and colourful element to this, which is understated but still quite good. So it's a really impressive Japanese fountain pen for a very cheap price. Nice small size, but still easy to handle. So it definitely gets a big thumbs up from me. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my video. Turn on all notifications, because there will be more Japanese fountain pens featuring in my fountain pen journey over the coming months. So thanks very much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Bye.